My name is Melissa. Standing in the silent conference room, the air thick with tension, I watched as Mr. Sterling, my parents' high-end lawyer, closed his folder with a sharp snap and stood up. His face was cold as ice as he announced his immediate withdrawal from the case, leaving my parents in a state of shock. It all started when a process server handed me a thick envelope on my porch. I tore it open, and to my horror, it was a lawsuit from my own parents. They were suing me for $2 million, claiming that I had stolen my business from my older brother, Ethan. I owned a software company focused on automated logistics, which I'd built from scratch with a laptop bought at a pawn shop. My parents, Helen and Richard, had always favored Ethan. He was the golden child in the family. When Ethan wanted to start a fintech startup, they didn't hesitate. They took out a large loan against their house and gave him $500,000. Ethan rented a fancy office in the city center and hosted expensive client dinners. But his business failed miserably when the market took a downturn. Instead of taking responsibility, he blamed the economic situation, and my parents just accepted it as bad luck. Meanwhile, I was living in a tiny, cold studio apartment. I ate cheap ramen most nights and worked 18-hour days coding. I built my client base one cold call at a time, using a Wi-Fi connection I borrowed from a nearby coffee shop. I never asked my parents for help because I knew they wouldn't give it. When I received the lawsuit demanding 50% of my company, I was initially filled with fear. But then, as I delved deeper, I realized this was not just about greed. My parents had staked their entire future on Ethan. If he was a failure, they would face a penniless retirement. So, they created a false narrative where I was the thief who stole Ethan's ideas. My mother's signature on the affidavit claiming she saw me take notes while Ethan spoke was a blatant lie. But to her, it was a way to save face. I called her, giving them one last chance to back down. She was eerily calm, telling me to stop being dramatic and that they just wanted what was fair. Then she dropped the bombshell. They had a contract. A photo of a cocktail napkin appeared on my phone. It had a crude flowchart and the words, "Ethan owns 50%. Melissa does the coding," along with a poorly forged signature that was supposed to be mine. The date scribbled on it was from a family dinner 3 years ago. I asked her if she was willing to swear under oath that she saw me sign it, and she said yes without hesitation. That's when I knew I had to fight back. I started by investigating their finances. I found out they'd taken a short-term bridge loan from a predatory lending firm called Titan Capital to fund the lawsuit. I used all my savings and business earnings to buy out the loan. I became their creditor. I also needed to expose the lie about the napkin. I pulled up the Git repository of my codebase. The core architecture was written in a 72-hour sprint. While I was coding non-stop, Ethan was partying in Bali as shown by his Instagram posts. I had the evidence, but I needed them to commit their lies on the record. I sent an email to their lawyer, pretending to be a scared and overwhelmed young woman. I asked for mediation, and they took the bait. In the conference room, I confronted Ethan. I asked him about the so-called encryption handshake protocol that I made up on the spot. He started to explain it with false confidence. Then I revealed the truth. There was no such protocol in my system. I showed them the Git commit history and Ethan's Instagram feed side by side. It was clear that he was lying, and the napkin was a forgery. Mr. Sterling, realizing the perjury and fraud, withdrew from the case. I then presented the mortgage assignment. I told my parents that since they defaulted on the loan by paying the lawyer, I was calling the debt due. They had 30 days to vacate the house. As I was leaving, Ethan tackled me at the elevators. He tried to force me to unlock my phone and delete the evidence. But I had hired a security contractor, Mr. Harris, in advance. He quickly subdued Ethan, and the police were called. Ethan pleaded guilty to fraud, perjury, and assault, and was sentenced to 18 months. My parents lost the house. I didn't keep it. Instead, I sold it and used the money to start a scholarship fund for engineering students. 3 months later, the lawsuits were gone, and the restraining orders were in place. I deleted the folder of evidence. I finally felt like the future was mine. Have you ever had to become the villain in someone else's story just to survive?